Good luck, something I rarely ever have. And for many, they lack too. Might be because of karma, might be divine destiny, might just be statistics not being in one's favor. No matter what the cause, many turn to everything and anything to change their fortune around. Whether it be religion, superstitions, or talismans. One such route people have chosen for good luck, and to symbolize good luck since, well, basically humanity formed, is the small but mighty rabbit. And in modern times, specifically, the rabbit's foot. So leave your holy hand grenades at home as we venture down the rabbit hole. Sorry, just couldn't help myself with a pun and Monty Python reference. Off to a great start. To tell how humans went from worshipping rabbits to carrying their foot in their pockets. A quick rundown. Ornithalgus cincilius, better known as a rabbit, no way I pronounced that right, has been around for a long time. Older than Homo sapiens. Though, through evolution, they have changed a bit from where they started to where they are now. In 2008, scientists found a rabbit's foot bone about 53 million years old. Quite lucky to have a rabbit's foot last that long, but it goes to show you that humans have never known a world without rabbits. And that goes not just for time, but location. Yes, different species of rabbit, not a universal rabbit species, but from North America to Asia, from Africa to Europe, even isolated Australia. Every continent except Antarctica, which Antarctica 50 million years ago may have had rabbits. We don't know. There's a lot of different kinds of rabbits, so it makes sense that our human brains, our observant, creative nature, would assign stories to this type of animal. And to my surprise, across cultures and time, humans would assign similar overviewing arches to their myths about rabbits. Using rabbits as a loose term here because some cultures have myths of shapeshifters or rabbit-like features, etc., in their mythology. But either way, everyone, in one way or another, associates rabbits with luck, nimbleness, and fertility. From ancient China, having the rabbit be a symbol for prosperity and good luck with fertility, to the other side of the world in the Aztec culture, where they had Sencion Tocochin, basically translates as 400 rabbits. The 400 rabbits being a group of divine rabbits that would meet up for drinking parties. Sounds like my kind of rabbits. So the symbol of rabbits has been around since civilizations began. But where humanity started to carry dead rabbits, or rabbit bits, for lack of a better word, wouldn't happen until around 600 BC, where the Celts would start carrying around rabbit and rabbit bits. You see, in Celtic mythology, rabbits weren't just food. Celtics thought at this time, since the rabbits have the ability to dig underground, that rabbits could travel to the underworld and meet with the dead and certain gods, making the rabbit a divine creature. And the Celts wanted a part of this divinity. So, the Celts started to have rabbits with them for luck. But as time marched forward, the Celts changed with the time and integrated new practices in their society, causing the carrying of rabbits with them to fall to the wayside. But throughout most cultures, though not in the mainstream, would still have rabbits be lucky in one way or another. During the medieval ages, lucky rabbits would make a slight comeback. See, during the medieval ages, a lot of black magic and superstitious beliefs were in people's minds. There were also a lot of hangings, and people somehow got the idea that cutting off the hand of a hanged man, and better yet, if he could, cut off the left hand of the hangman, would be a great good luck charm for them. They would call this charm the Hand of Glory. How this started, I have no idea. Weirder still, some people would even pickle the dead man's hand to keep it around longer. But since there wasn't enough hands to go around, pun intended, people started falling back to the tradition of rabbit bits and pieces. Rabbit foot for a brief time, made some waves. Then fast forward until about the 16th century, where rabbit charms would make a true comeback. Like I said, they never went away, but they were not in the limelight. That was until an English author by the name of Reginald Scott wrote a book called Discovery of Witchcraft. And he himself, Reginald, carried a rabbit's foot, which in turn brought it back to common in some circles. The rabbit foot at this time started to be a talisman to help prevent arthritis for people, and to help some people get pregnant if they're having issues. Which, to me, is all very weird, because for a predominantly Christian people at this time, they sure did like their talismans and magic. And pay to boot, even in the Old Testament it says that the rabbit is unclean. But it's a weird time. It still gets weirder. See, the rabbit foot started to change in culture. It started to matter how you got the rabbit's foot. A common theme from medieval times to basically present times, the more fucked up and evil way associated with getting the rabbit's foot, the luckier it is. Somehow, evil means lucky. Stories of cutting off a rabbit's foot at midnight in a graveyard, if you could do it at the most evil person's grave, you'd be great. And the more evil it is, the luckier it is. This kind of practice would be common for centuries. How you got the rabbit's foot started to actually matter, and people cared about. This is worse off for the rabbit, but in the people's mind, it's better luck for them. Eventually, the rabbit and the rabbit's foot got changed from a charm to a symbolically and literally relationship with witches. During the era of witch hunts, people believed that witches had the ability to change into a rabbit. So much so that people started to mass kill rabbits. And worse off, sometimes they would like to cut off the foot of the rabbit so they could easily identify the witch when she changed back to human form. Luckily for the rabbits, this period did not last too long. A major factor, in my opinion, I can't support this with hard evidence, but in my opinion, a major factor for the change of the rabbit foot's ideology after the witch hunt would be because of Britain, Portugal, and Spain's colonizations of America, where these countries, Britain, Portugal, and Spain, would start to bring slaves from Africa to the Americas. Africa, being forced over to new continents, would bring their stories, their myths, their tales with them. Again, in basically every culture, the rabbit is lucky, good at escaping, and in certain African folklore, a trickster. A creature that can trick people who's also lucky and good at escaping sounds like a great hope for any person who was a slave. Eventually, cultures would mix between Native American mythology and African mythology in the United States, and by the mid-1800s, a combination of folklore would form. A folklore by the name of Bray Rabbit, who came into fruition amongst many people, mainly in the southern United States. A tale and stories about a rabbit that used his brain to outsmart and outmaneuver more deadly animals to save his own life and escape to freedom. I imagine this would be extremely inspirational to people who were forced into slavery, and if this character theme sounds familiar, there is a chance, though there's no evidence, just a rumor, that Brer Rabbit, B-R-E-R, would be the inspiration behind the famous Bugs Bunny. Eventually, more cultures began to mix. African and Native American mythology started to mix with Haitian and European myths and superstition. Voodoo became more prevalent, especially in the southern slave-owning states. Along with voodoo, hoodoo began to come to rise. Hoodoo and voodoo are very different things, which I learned researching this. To be honest, I thought before researching this, these two were basically interchangeable. I was wrong. Voodoo tends to be more of a practice coming from African cultures and from the Caribbean, while hoodoo tends to be a blend of folklore from multiple cultures in the United States, mainly African cultures with European cultures. As myth and stories began to rise about the luck of the rabbit, many more people wanted to start cashing in on that luck. the rabbit's foot started to become not prevalent, but not uncommon, spreading to people who are heavy in superstition, like gamblers. Gamblers in the 1800s, trying everything they could to get an edge in poker, I guess. They started to use rabbit's feet. But for gamblers, it had to be the left foot and it had to be in their left pocket. Could be in their vest pocket, could be in their pants pocket. But the left foot of the rabbit goes in the left pocket of yourself, no matter what. Again, what I found strange, the practice of getting a rabbit's foot, is the most evil, fucked up ways. People running horses over rabbits, butchering them in graveyards, even in the new continent and the new century. People were still killing the rabbits on graves and cutting off one foot. Humanity never really changes. From there, more towards the change of the century, before entering the 20th century, a rabbit's foot was an item no one batted an eye at, though it was not the most common thing. A rabbit's foot was an item no one batted an eye at, or thought strange to own one. Wasn't common, but it was normalized. There are even rumors that Grover Cleveland had a rabbit foot on him while running for the President of the United States, which he wouldn't be the only president to have a rabbit's foot, or be rumored to have one. Then the 20th century would finally come, and along with the 20th century, commercialization and common international trade. By 1908, rabbit feet were common store and catalog items sold across America and England. Not so much the rest of Europe, still here and there, but majority in America and England. As for Asia at this time, I have no idea. I assume the rabbit's foot was still prevalent in certain cultures, especially with rabbit in Asia being tied to luck and fertility, but I couldn't find any evidence to confirm any major comeback, the rabbit's foot being a charm that was popularized and sold in mass. From there, the commercialization of rabbit's foot stayed and became an everyday item. The other president I was talking about, President FDR, he was rumored to have a lucky rabbit's foot during his presidency. Luckily, as time progressed, humans went majority from real rabbit's foot to synthetic fake rabbit's foot, cloth, styrofoam, plastic, etc., etc. But with that being said, I did find it surprising, though, that even though we're in the 21st century and there's still somehow a market for real rabbit's feet, with that being said, I found something surprising that even though we're in the 21st century, we have tons of other materials, there is still a market for real rabbit's feet. Even though, for the most part, majority of the world has switched to synthetic rabbit's feet, there are still markets for real rabbit's feet and even breeding farms for rabbit's feet happening in Southeast Asia. The luck of the rabbit has come in many forms throughout humanity. Everything from carrying a dead rabbit with you, to symbology, to mythology, to stories, to carrying rabbit parts, like their feet, that you cut off in a very weird, evil way. So hopefully, if you are superstitious and want some extra luck, you don't go with the real rabbit's foot. You go with a synthetic rabbit's foot. Their foot might be lucky for you, but it's definitely unlucky for the rabbit. And I know I hopped around a bit in this story, but rabbits have been ingrained in humanity's culture for eons. They are a creature so simple, yet so universal. Hopefully, you learned a bit on where this iconic item comes from. And hopefully, it gives the item more meaning to you. With that being said, thank you all for listening.